wait, wrong thing.
Oh, look at this. Appearance.
Did you just photobomb the campaign?
Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the zoning board, and welcome. Judy, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Salmonson.
Present.
Jacobs.
Here.
Osterholm.
Here.
Raska.
Here.
Thank you. Also present is Planning and Zoning Administrator Meg Leatherman.
As for the agenda, we have one on the theater in town, and the second will be the housing fence thing that we're all familiar with. So everybody take a minute and review them. We have some communications, we'll look at those at the appropriate time. They're in regard to the cases. Everybody take a look at the minutes. If you haven't, I'll give you a minute, and then somebody make a motion, it would be appreciated.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as they are.
Seconded.
Judy?
If you can change your motion just to adopt the minutes, then we can let
Okay.
Ellis vote on this thing, which we just want to include.
I'll make a motion to
Mark,
adopt the minutes.
Seconded.
Thanks so much. Salmonson.
I know they're mine now.
Approve. Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Raska.
Minutes are reviewed. Public hearings. First one is the Central Business District with the theater. Mag, lead us off.
All right. Yes, this is a variance request, an application for the Little Art Theater, represented by Caleab Wyant, and I believe John Paulson is here tonight. That's the applicant. The property address is 247 Xenia Avenue, and it's located in the B1 zone. This is a variance request to allow a new marquee sign. Adjoining property owners were mailed a notice on July 29th. A sign was posted on the property on August 2nd, and in the paper, it was posted on August 2nd as well. I prepared a staff report that outlines the applicable code criteria that was provided to the board last Friday and was also made available online for the public. The staff report does have one correction that I'll go over in more detail a little bit later, but basically in the staff report outlines 3 variations or variance requests when, after conferring with Judy and reviewing some prior cases related to signs and marquee signs, we've decided that it's really only necessary to have 2. And so I'll go over an explanation of how kind of we calculated the marquee sign and how the zoning code was applied to it in a little bit. The building opened as a theater in 1929, and the first film screening was in February 1930. The actual exact time that the marquee sign was installed, or the marquee structure was installed, is unknown, but the theater was able to find photos that date back to the mid-1940s, so we know that it has been in existence for at least 80 years. The proposal includes removal of the entire marquee structure and replacing it pretty much almost exactly in the same location, except it's not going to extend out quite as far. So the ends and the location is the same, except it won't extend out towards the street as much. It'll be set back a little, like 1 foot less. Okay. So the proposal, okay, and I'm going to let the applicant speak more to the reasons as to why they're proposing to remove it and replace it. But in general, generally speaking, they're doing it to improve the structural integrity, but also to modernize the way that the shows and events are displayed. Right now, they have to go up and manually change it and have a sign, a ladder to change the letters out, but they would like to switch to an electronic method of displaying that information. So again, it's to remove the entire marquee structure there and completely replace it in the same location, except it won't extend out as far towards the street. There will be new sign language on the front that will read Little Art Theater, and electronic message board on each end cap. And the best way to view it and think about it is to see the staff report. The applicant provided really good, detailed site, I don't even know, design, standard design, layout, and dimensions. It's basically like ready for a building permit pretty much, but it has real good graphics on what it's going to look like. So now, on to the really fun part. I'm going to try to explain the zoning code. So have some grace because, you know, I will be honest, sign code is not my favorite section of the zoning code. Okay, so it's chapter 1266, and there are different standards that are outlined in there for based on the type of sign and the zone that the sign is located in. For each sign type, the code allows for a total number of signs on the property that are allowed, and also a total square footage that's allowed for sign language. So again, based on the type of sign, there is a different allowed size and a different allowed number of signs. And there's a variety of types. There's wall signs, canopy signs, monument signs, et cetera, marquee signs, and they all have a total number of signs that are allowed on the property and a square footage, and sometimes other standard as well. So where I started with and trying to apply these standards, because they tried to fit those two criteria and some others, like they did all other signs, also to marquee signs, but marquee signs are three-dimensional, so it's a little bit clunky in our code, because how do you get there with three-dimensional versus most signs are two-dimensional. So it's a little bit clunky, that's why I wanted to describe it. So I started with the definition of marquee sign. A sign, and this is what it reads, and it's from the zoning code. A sign that is part of or attached to a permanent roof-like structure or canopy of rigid materials supported by and extending from the building front. So what I took from that to help me, guide me, was that it distinguishes between a marquee structure and the sign language that's placed on the marquee structure. So first, again, go back to the zoning code, and keeping in mind, like, there's sign language, that's the sign, and then a marquee structure that also has sizes and everything in there. The code allows for what it says, one marquee sign. And in my staff report, I went down the path of saying, well, there's three marquee signs, but then if you're looking at read the definition carefully, it's really only one marquee sign. So I don't think they need a variance for that, and that was with conferring with Judy and past other marquee signs that were reviewed.
No, good.
So it's just like one continuous, like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. But then, when you go to the section of the code that says you have to have 48 square feet or less, I'm just measuring the size of the text that's on the marquee sign, because 48 square feet is two-dimensional, and you can't really measure a marquee structure two-dimensionally very easily, and it doesn't really make sense to be 48, so that's how we applied it. So I placed a box around the text of Little Art Theater, and then took the measurements of the two NCAP electronic message board readers and added those square footage together to get 69.7 square feet. And like the placing the box around the Little Art Theater language text is actually described in the code. You're supposed to do it that way. So the total is 69.7 square feet, and the allowed is 48, so they do need a variance for that, and that the variance is actually the difference between those two, which throwing another number into this always makes it so much more fun. Why not? So then the other second variance they need is for the projection of the marquee structure out from the building wall, because it's very plainly, it says that it's only allowed to project out 6 feet. A marquee is only allowed to project out 6 feet, and they're proposing 9 feet. Now, I will add that right now it extends out 10 feet, the existing one right now. So they are reducing the amount, and that there is a reason they're reducing it, is because of it kind of overhangs a little bit into the right-of-way too much. So I think they'll probably explain that a little bit more. So then, to summarize, there are 2 requested variances, 1 variance of 3 feet to allow the marquee structure to project out from the building wall, 9 feet, and a second variance of 21.7 square feet to allow for a total side of 69.7. And then a couple other important code sections I wanted to highlight was that illuminated signs are allowed in the B1 zone. as long as they're not within 50 feet of a residential district, and I measured that, and this property is not within 50 feet of a residential zone district. And then changeable messages are allowed, which the electronic message boards would have. However, they're not they have to be static. They're not allowed to be automated, where, little figures that jump around or whatever, and they're only allowed to be changed once every 12-hour period. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover. I think it would be good to hear from the applicant and kind of explaining the rationale more details, but I'll stand for any questions and let the board, review the factors that are outlined in the code before making a decision and hearing from the applicant.
I just have one question. Since the sign already comes out 9 feet, they obviously had a variance for that. This sign's shorter. Is that variance grandfathered?
So it sends out 10 feet now, and they want 9.
Yeah,
but I don't think they had a variance. It's just been there since the 1940s, so it's kind of grandfathered.
Trying to shorten it.
Or what our code calls it non-conforming, is what our code calls it, but the common term is grandfathered.
Mr. Wyant, you'd like to speak? Your turn.
Hi. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you. I'm John Paulson, Caleb, but I'm a consulting engineer that the Little Art Theater Board brought on board to help manage this project. So I'll add to what Meg shared with you. A little bit of background. Some months ago, the Little Art Theater Board was successful in receiving a grant to fund this project. The intention was to essentially reskin the existing frame with shortening it a foot so that it wasn't in the right-of-way. And in working with Meg, we believe that that would have allowed us to be grandfathered because we were just going to reskin the existing frame that was there, assuming that that frame was steel, going back to, again, the mid-40s. Also, part of the initiative is to restore the look. I think you have the drawings back to that's based on photographs that we have from that time period. So to aesthetically bring it back to that Art Deco design, and also, as Meg shared with you, put the electronic panels on each end so Caleb isn't out there climbing a ladder, replacing the panels, which break and are difficult to install. So that was our intention. We have since hired Wagner Electric Sign Company. They're out of Cleveland. This is what they do. They do marquees all over the country. Really are experts in that. About 2 months ago, they came in to do some field investigation of the frame. We removed one of the beautiful panels underneath and got it there, and that's where we discovered the entire frame is a wood structure. It was that way from the original sign, as far as we can tell, goes up. So clearly it wouldn't meet the current building code. That structure itself would not meet the current building code, so it has to be replaced in order to put a marquee up there. That essentially is why we're before you today. So again, the reasoning is to bring that marquee up to current building code. And of course, building permits would have to be sought and stamp drawings submitted, all a part of that process, as you are all aware, I'm sure. Also, I should note, the installation of the sign marquee isn't set until spring of '25. So there's still design work that is happening. Those stamp drawings are being prepared now. They'll be submitted to the building department. Then we have to get into their production run. So essentially, I guess my summary is, if you are kind enough to grant us this variance, we'll move forward with replacing that marquee with a new one that's structurally sound on a metal frame that has that aesthetic look as the original did from the 1940s, but it'll be current both in technology and look.
Thank you.
Any questions of me or us? Thank you.
And I'd like to, thank you, sir. I'd like to open the public hearing if anybody from the huge audience would like to say anything. All-time record.
he's not being sarcastic, it is. It's our long-time record.
No one's coming forward. I'll close the public hearing. And any questions from the board?
I have a question for Meg. Would this be
Please.
2 variances or 1 variance?
I believe 2.
Okay. Variance to,
So it's a,
1 and 3 on this.
yeah.
Yeah, correct.
We have a,
Do you have it? Maybe he doesn't have it.
So you've got the variance to the
Variance to the
3-foot projection.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Variance of 3 feet to the projection. And then the second one would be the variance of 21.7 square feet. Matt, it's on the, I think, 3rd page of her report.
yeah,
On the front also.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep, on the front.
21.9 or 7.
That is incorrect.
Yeah, the 79 and 110.
We went over that, and that is incorrect. So there's a header that has incorrect information. Cross out that header. Go on down to the report where she's got summary, and then it says this variance request has 3 components. That information is correct, except that she's just explained the elimination of the need for variance number 2.
Got it.
Did you,
Good? Just cross out number 2.
I'm just looking at this one right there. You know, so we're just dealing with this and this.
Yeah, you covered my questions, and you said that.
So we're doing 1 and 3.
Yeah.
I have one curiosity question. What are you going to do with the old sign?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Intention is to save the piano, the beautiful pianos that are underneath, and I believe the board is talking to others in the community about where those might be displayed, perhaps on an exterior wall or something.
Oh, okay. Just wondered.
The rest of it is really, there's not.
Yeah, the wood's probably pretty old. Any other questions?
I just have a comment. First, Meg, thanks for presenting it clearly and accurately, and I got it. Thanks. And for your presentation, I did have this question about the grandfathering, and then you answered it, so I'm good with that. Thank you.
And we don't know when it was built originally?
Not for sure, at least.
I find it curious with the wood framing. I wonder if it was like, might have been early 1940s, like World War II, where they couldn't use steel because it was all in demand for the war effort, and they went with wood. I was just curious about when I said it was wood frame, because they built it right because it's been there this long.
Probably good wood.
Not to interrupt you, but our photographic evidence goes back to the mid-40s. So we know that we believe that frame and that marquee is at least that old.
Interesting.
I like historical, so that's interesting, very interesting.
Okay, now we'll go through the 7 questions. If Judy, if you give your spiel.
You shut the question away? I mean, 8?
Is there 8 now?
do we need to do the questions twice, ma'am, or
yes,
just
you do.
once?
Yes.
We're going to do them twice?
You're doing, well,
Okay.
you're pondering 2 separate variances, to be exact. So the first is, we'll just go in this order. The first thing that you're considering is a variance of 3 feet to the projection for a 9-foot total projection. Okay? So I'm going to roll through these Duncan standards. I'll pause briefly. If I don't hear questions or consternation, I'll call roll on that question.
Could you take a minute and explain to the audience the Duncan standards, and yes and no's don't mean that much?
So the Duncan standards are required by Ohio Revised Code. Every one of these questions has to be addressed by each Board of Zoning Appeal member. All answers don't have to be in the affirmative to pass the variance. It's basically, have you considered this and in what manner? So, I mean, if the answers to everything were no, you would likely not get your variance. That's true, but there will be some variety in response, but that's not of concern.
Thank you. Proceed, ma'am, please.
All right, here we go. The first question is whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Jacobs.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Whether the variance is substantial. Osterholm.
No.
Raska.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
Jacobs.
No.
whether the essential nature of the character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Raska.
No.
Jacobs.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
Whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of government services such as water distribution, sanitary sewer collection, electric distribution, stormwater collection, or refuse collection. Jacobs.
No.
Raska.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions. Everyone's favorite, Osterholm.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance. Jacobs.
Yes.
Raska.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Whether the existing conditions from which a variance is being sought were self-created. Osterholm.
Yes.
Jacobs.
No.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
One to me.
And finally, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Jacobs.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
So if you want to go ahead and get a motion
Yeah,
on
I just
passing.
whispered in his ear.
Okay, so I would, are we doing it one at a
Yeah.
time?
Because you've opened and closed that public hearing, I would, yes.
All right, so I would move that we accept, is it accepting? Or are we adopting? Approving.
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 I would move that we approve the first variance.
Seconded.
And that says the 3 foot, correct?
Yeah.
And I will write that specifically as the variance of 3 feet to allow a 9-foot projection, so.
Judy, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Osterholm.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes, in favor of the variance.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Approved. If there's any doubt on the first one. Do you have anything to add on the second variance that was not covered?
I don't believe so.
Does anybody in the public have any words to say about the second variance? I'll close the public hearing. Board members, any questions?
No, sir.
Judy, can you read the Duncan factors?
I will do so. This is on a variance of 21.7 square feet for a total of a permitted 69.7 square feet. First, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Salmonson.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Raska.
Yes.
Whether the variance is substantial. Osterholm.
No.
Raska.
No.
Jacobs.
Nope.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Whether the essential nature of the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Raska.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Jacobs.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
Whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of governmental services such as water distribution, sanitary sewer collection, electric distribution, stormwater collection, or refuse collection. Osterholm.
No.
Jacobs.
Nope.
Raska.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
Whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. Jacobs.
Yes.
It's always yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Raska.
No.
Whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance. Raska.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
whether the existing conditions from which a variance is being sought were self-created. Osterholm?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Raska?
Yes.
Finally, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Raska?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes. Anybody have a motion?
Motion to approve the variance request of square footage?
I will second that.
Raska.
We have a first and a second. Could you read the, take roll, Julie, please?
Yes. Osterholm?
Yes.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Raska?
Yes, in favor of the variance.
Thank you. Salmonson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Got them both, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Nice presentation. Very nice.
Yes, I'll send an update to the staff report based on removing that one. Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Deborah, in second, anybody need a stretch or anything?
Shake it out.
Okay, the second case today is the fence on the property. Meg, hit it.
All right. So this is another variance application, obviously, for fence height at 716 South High Street. Nadia Malarkey is the applicant, and representing the owners, Mike and Sue Chambers. The property is in the RB zone, and adjoining property owners were mailed a notice on July 29th. Sign was posted on the property on August 2nd, as well as notices were published in the paper on August 2nd. I prepared a staff report that outlined the applicable code criteria, which was provided to the board last week. And this one is also a two-part variance. There is one variance for allowance of an 8-foot fence, and so it's a variance of 2 feet, and then a variance request of 1 foot to allow a 5-foot fence in the front yard. I'll go over it just really briefly, and then the applicant can come up and speak to it a little bit too. So the home, as an originally constructed in 1900, was purchased by the present owners in 2017. Since then, the owners have received several building permits renovating the existing building, adding rooms and a screened-in porch and a deck. Again, the applicant will speak more to that. And then the reason why they're asking for the fence height exceptions, what I've been told is that it is for privacy and to secure pets, to safely secure pets. So the code requires fences in residential zones. It allows them up to 6 feet in side yards. And again, they're wanting the 8-foot fence on the side yard, but only of a length of 25 feet. So the 8-foot fence would attach to the northeast corner of the home and run perpendicular to the side of the home and end after 25 feet to where then the 5-foot fence would continue on. But the 5-foot fence will run at an angle and enter into the front yard. So then different code requirements are in the front yard. You can only have a 4-foot fence in the front yard. So that's where they need the 1-foot variance for the front yard exception. So the easiest way to look at this, to understand this, is to look at the applicant's site plan, where you can see how after the 8-foot section, so the 8-foot section is directly perpendicular to the side of the home, but then after the 25 feet, where it's 8 feet, it'll go down to 5 foot, but runs at an angle. Her site plan, she clearly lays it out. It's this one, and I'm not, are you searching for it down there? It looks like this. Okay. It's the easiest way to understand it and see it. But I've been told, and this hasn't been approved yet, but is that there'll be a 6-foot fence on the rear and the other side. That does require a fence permit. A fence permit is reviewed at the staff level, so they'll do that after this. If they get approval of the variance, they'll have to submit fence permits for the 6-feet portion. So this variance is just for the exceptions to the height for those 2 portions I've been talking about, the 8-foot and the 5-foot. so I think that's all I have. The board should hear from the applicant and again weigh the factors outlined in the staff report. And I'll stand for any questions.
Ma'am, you the speaker, please.
Hello, good evening. My name is Nadia Malarkey, and I've lived in Yellow Springs since 1984. I am a regenerative landscape designer and was commissioned by the clients to create a biodiverse, predominantly native landscape. What we did in the very beginning, and I'm bringing this up because I just saw the letter that was written in protest by the adjoining neighbor. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to look at it in more detail, but I did read it in its entirety and ran around trying to find my old drawings. But the clients went through extreme expense to label and mark all the existing trees on the property, every single one. We had two professional arborists, one who is an ecological arborist and another one who's just a regular arborist. So we marked down the trees in order of dead, damaged, diseased, and invasive. So we wanted to be in accordance with the village code 674.02 about noxious weeds. There was a lot of ailanthus, which is the tree of heaven, and as you know, those are not desirable trees. They're taking over our wildlife areas due to the seed drops. So we also created a chart listing all the trees, which ones were dangerous. So basically, if you have a dangerous tree and a certified arborist tells you that this is dangerous and you do not remove it and it falls on your neighbor's home, you are liable as a property owner. So my clients took due diligence to make sure that all the trees that could be affecting themselves and their neighbors were taken down. And so that I have to defend them in terms of the perceived disregard and disrespect of the environment and the ecology by the letter that was given by the neighbor. So we did know what we were doing. We hired professionals. I am a professional. And the intention is to create a beautiful biodiverse landscape with a natural area. The fence issue is to do with where the family are going to be spending a lot of their time, and we made sure that the solid privacy fence, which is 8 foot high, sits 23 feet back from the sidewalk, and it will be done in a aesthetically and historically appropriate design for the house. And then the other fence isn't, it's the pictures I think are in your, thank you for giving that to them, Meg. And so the other one is just a black steel fence, and the reason they want it to be 5 feet is so that the dogs don't jump the fence. They have 3 dogs. They are incredible, careful, respectful, and responsible pet owners. They do walk their dogs. When their dogs are outside, they will be with their dogs. They're not going to just have them out yapping all day. So my request is to please consider welcoming new people to our community, giving them the right to privacy. They are very also welcoming to others, and I won't say what I was going to say about one of the terms that was used, because that would not be good to go there. But do you have any questions? No?
Not right now, we don't.
Okay, all right.
I go in public hearing if anybody has something to say. I'm not hearing anything.
Should we acknowledge the letters that we put in the record?
Oh, there were 2 letters put into the records. One you covered quite from a neighbor, and an addendum to the letter from another neighbor that we've read.
So it was actually the same
person.
one person.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And those are, by the way, they're spruce trees, they're not pine trees, for the record.
Yeah, I mean, just with regards to these letters, I wanted to say that, I don't know if, is the writer of the letters here? I don't think so. I mean, we should acknowledge that somebody put a lot of thought and into writing these, and they are heartfelt, but they're not actually addressed to the issues before us today. And so, I just want her to feel appreciated and that, they were read and we understand that she's trying to address something that she feels deeply about.
May I say something?
Please.
Yes. And I did apologize profusely to the lady because I did make a mistake when the gentleman came over to drop the trees. And I had not realized that that section of land was her property. That was on the northwest corner of the house. And after that was done and she showed me her map, I apologized to her and I wasn't belligerent about it. It's like when you make a mistake, you say it. Other than that, as far as I'm concerned, that was the only time where we crossed over on her property and did something that was not appropriate. So I did apologize. Thank you.
Ma'am, could we have your name and...
Yeah, my name's Ralita Hildebrand Shavers, and I'm one of the homeowners in question. And I just wanted to say that, we hired Nadia because we really care about our property and having a very natural environment. And if you haven't seen it, you'll notice that there are very large land mounds that surround a circle in our yard, and that circle is one of the only areas that's actually going to be grass in our yard. The mounds are a demarcation line where we'll have largely wild area around. So we've taken a lot of time and attention to create an environment that we think is very functional for us and our dogs, and also beautiful and continues to have, a lot of wildflowers and plants and bushes and things. It's not going to be like an acre of mowed grass like it may look now as we're doing a lot of construction. And I also want to address that one of the reasons why we're so passionate about asking for this variance is because we have 2 large dogs. And we have a 3rd dog that belongs to my daughter who visits every once in a while. But we have 2 large dogs. And that's one of the reasons why we were so attracted to this particular property, because it does have a lot of land and we don't let our dogs out by themselves. But we thought it would be fun for them to have some space to run around. And because they're large, they can put their paws up on a 4-foot fence. And so we're hoping that the plan that Nadia laid out brings the fence back far enough away from the sidewalk that the variances that we're requesting would not make it an eyesore in the community and would look appropriate. The 8.5 or the 8-foot fence next to our house is still dwarfed because the house is so high. So, having a 4-foot fence next to it would almost look ridiculous, honestly. But that's not why we're asking for the variance. We're asking for the variance so that we have privacy to not agitate the dogs when they're out on the deck with us and out in the screened in porch. And to have a higher fence that goes along the side so that the dogs won't put their, paws up on it. So, I appreciate your...
Is there any experience with the dogs jumping a 4-foot fence?
No.
So that's not...
I mean, one of my dogs has jumped a fence, but there was a hardscape that was a launching pad, so he was able to get over it. And we are not having any hardscape launching pads next to our yard, so we're, next to our fences. So, again, I thank you very much. I wasn't aware of the letter, so, yeah. I do have a picture of an evil sign that was put on the back of that house towards our yard, though, so if anyone's interested in seeing that. Sure. Thank you so much.
Oh, you can say that. I think we'll have some questions. You might, whoever wishes to.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you should share it because then it'll probably be part of the record if you share it, yeah.
Wait till after the meeting.
Yeah.
I'm too bad if somebody bought that house and started working. I started watching it just rot away.
So I guess I'll start. Ma'am, you have a 5-foot fence in the front that's an iron fence and an 8-foot fence in the back. So obviously, why couldn't it meet the standards of 6 feet in the back?
It's not 6 feet.
Can you come up to?
Not in the back, I'm sorry, the side.
Yeah.
I misspoke.
Yeah, sorry. Because the deck sits 30 inches above the ground, and that's the part that we're
So it's
trying.
more for private,
It's for
the
privacy.
versus, it keeps dogs in, but
The
privacy.
dogs are for the 5-foot fence. The 8-foot fence is basically, we'll keep them in. But the 5-foot fence on that one side, on the eastern side, is what we were asking for. These are 2 variances, is that
Yeah.
correct, Judy?
Correct.
Okay.
I guess this is a question for Judy. What's the easement from the property line for a fence?
The easement? You mean the
Is there-
setback?
Side look, the setback.
Setback, I use it.
Fences don't have to,
They can be on the property line.
yes, correct. Yeah.
And they got an inset off the,
Just wondering.
I'm
right
wondering
off High
about,
Street.
I'm wondering about the 8-foot versus 6 feet. I mean, people that live behind me have a 6-foot tall fence that they built recently. It provides pretty good privacy for them. I can't see a darn thing in their yard. Not that I'm trying to.
Well,
And so, we've traditionally in this town tried to be, I was once on when I was on this group once, Ted Donnell was on the group, and, Ted was an architect, and he once opined on the idea that there were communities with tall fences and communities with short fences, and they're different sorts of communities. Because if you have a community where you want to be a face-to-face community where people talk to each other and see each other and get to know their neighbors, you want to be a community with a short fences as opposed to the stockades. 8-foot fence is a stockade. So I kind of wonder about whether it's really necessary or just sort of like a little icing on the cake.
may I respond? Thank you. Well, it's not a stockade because it ends at 25 feet. It's 23 foot back, so if they were to put an addition on, technically, the addition could be as high as the house. So, I mean, as a designer, I'm just going to come out straight. It just aesthetically, it looks much better, and also it does provide them that extra degree of privacy when you're sitting up on a 30-inch deck. I mean, the deck's this high off the ground, so they'll be on top of that. And so the further, further away it is from the street, less a feeling it is of a stockade. Plus, we'll be having plantings in front of it. If you see it, 23 feet back is pretty far back. And it doesn't go the whole line, so it's like you've got the fence, and the fence also has a gate in it, which is going to provide some break. So in other words, here's a gate, it's welcoming you in, so we are a welcoming, I mean, I'm just addressing some of the concerns.
The 8-foot fence is going to have a gate?
Yes.
To the neighbor?
No, that we're just doing this side. The 8-foot fence is the only portion where we're asking for the 8-foot fence is the part that goes perpendicular to the eastern side on South High Street of the house.
Parallel to the street.
Right.
Parallel to the street, but sits back 23 feet from the sidewalk. So it's pretty far back, and it won't be white, it won't be plastic. It'll actually be black locust, which is a native tree that has become a little bit aggressive when it's taken out of its native range, and so it's sustainable as in some areas they're cutting it down because it's taking over land where it shouldn't be, and so we're using a sustainable wood.
I'm confused.
If I may speak in favor of the variances, it's their property and their privacy.
True,
And it's going to be a very aggressive fence
true.
because of the tree, she just told us.
I just,
And it's only 25 feet. Now, the rest of it is going to be this 5-foot open area.
Yeah.
Totally see-through, so it'd be very, like we were showing.
You actually will disappear because it's black. You won't even see the
Portion,
fence.
that's 8 feet.
this is the front of the house.
Do you have a picture of the metal fence that we're going to be doing?
Yeah, we do.
The finials, it's not white, and it's not plastic. I mean, I would not like plastic white fence.
So Judy, is that, since it's at the front of the house, the 8-foot fence, is that considered a front yard fence?
You, do you have a picture of the metal fence that we're going to be doing?
This is the front of the house.
The finials, it's not white, and it's not plastic. I mean, I would not like plastic white fence.
So Judy, is that considered a front yard fence?
No, so because there's a graphic in here. There's a graphic on page 2 that shows how the code defines front yard. And so the front yard, so here this says it's High Street. The fence is going to be right on the side yard line, but at the 8-foot portion. But then it's going to go over like that. The 5-foot portion is into the front yard, like that.
Here's the front door.
So here's the front yard. See, it extends from the sides, I guess the corners of
Behind
the corners of the house
north side.
is the side between the corners of the house.
So you agree with the side fence, okay, not a front yard fence?
The 8-foot portion is a side yard fence.
It's a little confusing.
And I drove by the house today, it's very nice, don't get me wrong, but
You're inclined to think of the function of the fence, but in fact, the way the code defines it, it matters what yard it's in. So if it's in the side yard, then it's a side yard fence.
yeah.
It's anything back. So it's the 8-foot portion. And this is the line for the distinguishing between the companies.
So you agree with the side fence? Okay.
Yes, I'm 100%. And the 8-foot portion is.
Any other questions from the members? Scott?
No, I've been watching the whole project, because I live right by there, so.
It's a project, it's very nice, by the way, it looks very nice. We all try to drive by it before we meet these boards. That's nothing against your pictures, but in person's a lot better. Judy, could you read the Duncan rules?
So
Do you want to see if there's more discussion amongst the board members before we get to the document?
Yeah, that's what I just did.
Oh, did you do that?
But do you have some?
do you want to,
They both answered, and I looked at you.
and if you are going to discuss, if you don't mind sort of breaking it into the 2 different variances, if that's possible, since they will be separately considered.
Well, we got someone right here raising their hand.
It's a public hearing.
Do you want to acknowledge him?
Wayne Gould, I live,
Okay, just a minute, will we open the public hearing for a moment? And go ahead, sir.
okay, yeah, Wayne Golden, and I live, across the street from you guys. That's where we're moving. But I'm curious about the fence goes 80 feet to the north property line. What's it do after that? What does it do after that?
It then turns the corner and runs at a right angle across the base.
So it heads west then,
Yes, correct.
and then goes to what,
To the building.
you go to your property line then, right?
No, it goes through the building and then across and then down across the road. No, it stops just before Kurt's property.
Is it electric shield?
No, electric shield's across the road.
Yeah.
Okay, because
It's the corner behind
that
West
little
Side.
piece that goes from the northeast corner then is still in the front yard, but it's not mentioned here. It's a small point.
So say that again.
Yes, that's a valid point.
Can I draw it? I mean, okay, so you got the part that goes along High Street, right? And that's the 80 feet.
Right.
It goes to the corner of their property, and then it turns right angle, right, and it gets back.
Right.
That's still in the front yard, according to the
That's
chart.
the back garden.
Well, I'm looking at your little chart here, and that shows the front yard still, right here.
Yeah, that's not the property, that's the hypothetical.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is their house, right? This
No,
is High Street. The fence comes out of here, then goes
Yeah.
here, which is
No.
still in the front yard, right?
Yeah.
Goes 80 feet down to the line.
Yeah.
And then goes this way.
Yeah.
That's still front yard.
That's the back. On the.
According to this chart, that's the front yard.
Adjoining
Just High Street, covers High
the
Street.
property of the electric shield.
Electric shield, yeah.
Yes, so what would that be defined? The lines that adjoin?
I'm not sure, I'm not tracking. If you don't agree with my staff report, I think it's 100% accurate, but if you, I'm not tracking, I don't know names of, I just know
I think
addresses.
it's not an important point for anything that I care about, but it just struck me as odd, that it didn't match your drawing.
So
So
electric shield.
I think I understand your point, is that where the fence makes the turn and heads towards the back, there will be a certain period until it reaches the edge of the house
You
when
got
it's
it.
in the front yard.
You got it.
Technically in the front yard. And then once it reaches the edge of the house, then that's the side yard.
Yes.
And then and when
got
it's
it,
at the end of the
Elvis. You
house,
got
it's the
it.
backyard, right?
Yeah, that goes back.
Yeah, okay. Got it.
So that's just a small point. but-
It's accurate.
Sorry to...
No, it's a good, valid point, we appreciate it.
But the black metal fence, when it turns the corner, stays at this 5, the proposal, it would stay at the 5 feet going back towards the back of the lot. Is that right?
We are not discussing the back because we only did the side. That's what I understood. The back is going to be within the code law, which would be a 6-foot fence if it's on the backyard. But if it's determined that that corner has to be 5 foot, then we will do, the
Well,
5 foot. But it seems to me it's not going to be blocking anyone's view. It's not going to be a corner. I mean, the letter of the law and the spirit of the law is to do with safety and vision and vista. So I'm just wondering about why you can't, if it's on the back end of an electric shield, that whole line could be a 6-foot metal fence.
Well, is that in front of us today, then?
No.
No,
It's
and
not, okay.
and also, once you do what you do,
Yeah.
the property owner has to come and get a fence permit. There's not going to be a fence permit issued if, in fact, there were, it's something that was incorrect in Meg's report, that's going to get caught. I don't have any qualms about Meg's being correct in her report, but then there's also a sort of a second check because then a building or a fence permit gets issued. So I don't share the concern, but
Okay. So here to here is 5 foot, correct? This is the front. Let's be
So
considered front
it
here.
just goes straight in.
And
I think we
then,
just need to focus on what we're approving. Yeah,
and
we're
then 8 foot.
approving
That's what I'm back on, is
a
8 foot.
variance for an 8-foot fence that is on the side yard
right.
for 25 feet. And then that's the first variance. And then the second one is
The 5 foot.
a 5-foot fence in the front yard.
Okay. I'll give it that.
More questions from, the public hearing's closed again, just to make it official. Any more discussion from the board?
I mean, I guess I'm in support of the variance because it's a question of the right to privacy.
We haven't got there yet.
I think he's just discussing.
Yeah.
Are you discussing? Okay.
Yes.
If it's a discussion, you can go ahead. Please.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm in support of the variance because it seems like a question of the right to privacy.
All right. Valid point. Any other discussion?
No. I'm kind of like him on, not on the right to privacy part, but on the 5 foot, because as a dog owner and raising from pups, I used to have a dog that we used to keep in like a little baby crib, and they'd figure out a way to jump out, and if a dog gets a chance and it figures it out once, it'll keep on doing it. So, I like precaution.
My question's been answered. Judy, could you read the Duncan rules, unless you have something to offer?
So what I'm calling the standards on now is the variance of 2 feet to allow for an 8-foot fence in the side yard, okay? Here we go. Whether the property,
8-foot fence first.
we're doing 8-foot fence first. We're all clear?
Yes, ma'am.
The first question is whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Raska.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Whether the variance is substantial. Jacobs.
Yes.
Osterholm.
No.
Raska.
No.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Jacobs.
Yes.
Raska.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of governmental services such as water distribution, sanitary sewer collection, electric distribution, stormwater collection, or refuse collection. Salmonson.
And Johnny checked that, right? Or Johnny's help? There's no pipes back there or anything?
Yeah, I know.
water pipes or,
Yeah, our Public Works Department reviewed it.
okay. So the answer is no.
Okay. Osterholm?
No.
Jacobs?
No.
Raska?
No.
Whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction? Osterholm?
Yes.
Raska?
Yes.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance? Jacobs?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Raska?
No.
Whether the existing conditions from which a variance is being sought were self-created? Osterholm?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Raska?
Yes.
Whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance? Raska?
Yes.
Jacobs?
No.
Osterholm?
Yes.
Salmonson?
No.
I'm going to have to text the lawyer, because I think when it's a tie, it goes to the, I'm not, it goes
Tie
one
goes to the
direction.
Well, don't we go with the vote?
That was just done,
Oh, right, your final one.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You still get
you
to,
don't get what those answers.
I was
mean,
anticipating a fraught moment coming up, but it hasn't happened yet, so we're good. Okay, want to make a motion?
Motion to approve the variance to the 8-foot fence?
I second that motion.
Variance.
Motion.
Is there any more discussion from the board on that?
Osterholm.
I guess I would say I'd favor it because they're going to be the ones that are going to be sitting on that property. Consider if it was your family being observed by everyone walking by.
And just to add to that, I just look at it, 25 feet, really, if you walk off 25 feet, it's not a big space. It's not that much, considering how the rest of that property is laid out. It's going to have a nice see-through 5-foot fence, and you can look right in as you're walking. So the privacy is just really if you're standing right next to them, looking at their deck, from the sidewalk. So I can respect that. And that's all I can say about that.
Anything to offer? Or you have the option?
Yeah, I guess I'm someone who thinks that we don't want to become a community with large fences facing the street and facing where people walk, and that a 6-foot fence, it will provide adequate privacy. You know, maybe if somebody's jumping up and down on the deck, it won't. But I think it's, you know, I don't see any compelling reason why we wouldn't say go with what the code requires. It requires that for a reason.
Without being able to speak directly to that reason, I think it's their decision because it is their property and their decision to not want to be observed.
Yes, but then why do we have rules?
Quick question. The deck is elevated 30 inches,
Yeah. Are you allowed to ask questions still?
so basically a 6-foot fence is
We
only...
should limit the questions just,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, as much as we can.
I just wanted to get the, on that deck, I like to get
She
make sure.
announced, I'll answer the question. The deck's elevated 30 inches, so it sits higher than the ground.
Okay, so that only leaves you 5.5 feet on 8 foot.
Yeah, it is elevated 30.
On a 6 foot, you're missing 2.5 feet.
So technically, it's, yeah.
Really, the discussion amongst you is a matter, it's a philosophical matter at this
Right,
point.
yeah, I'm just-
So, I mean, that, absolutely, state your positions, but
Just trying
there's,
to put everything on the table, that's all.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone's aware, and that's all.
I mean, it's not, I don't think there's math involved in like, this is right and this is wrong. At this point, it really is how you view the code, how you weigh private versus public. It's why there's a board of
Well, that's why
people and not just one person. I mean, that is what that's perfectly acceptable. No.
Speaking to Mr. Salmonson's question, why are there rules? The rules are here. We can say they can have a taller fence.
Yes, we can.
If they want to have more right to privacy and to be able to do with their property what they would like
That's
to.
true. That's why we're here, to make the variances. Any more discussion?
I understand what he's saying, I understand what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. Hopefully everyone understands what I'm saying. Let's vote.
Motion to approve the variance to the 8-foot fence.
I will second that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Good. Judy, call the roll.
All right. Raska.
Yes, in favor of the variance and the right to privacy.
That wasn't on that was not one of the questions.
Correct.
Please don't put that in minutes.
Just a yes. Jacobs.
No.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Salmonson.
No.
We've texted the attorney who says we need 3 to pass, so it is a no.
Second one, please, Judy.
This is just for the 8-foot portion.
Correct, that's for the 8-foot portion. And the second variance.
Say it out loud, Alice.
Okay. Are we ready for the second? Okay.
Yes.
All right?
Yep.
Okay, so the second variance is of 1 foot to allow a 5-foot fence in the front yard. Okay? This first question, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Osterholm?
Put us off guard, Judy.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Do you need a moment?
No, I'm good.
I'm good. I always read the questions as usually because they're...
Did you find it?
Yep.
I can slow down.
No?
So we're on question 1. Jacobs' property in question will yield a reasonable return without the variance?
Yes.
Yes. Salmonson?
Yes.
Raska?
Yes.
Whether the variance is substantial? Jacobs?
No.
Raska?
No.
Osterholm?
No.
Salmonson?
No.
Whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Raska?
No.
Osterholm?
No.
Jacobs?
No.
Salmonson?
No.
Whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of governmental services such as water distribution, sanitary sewer collection, electric distribution, stormwater collection, or refuse collection. Jacobs?
No.
Salmonson?
No.
Osterholm?
No.
Raska?
No.
Whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions. Salmonson?
Yes.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
Raska?
Yes.
Whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance. Raska?
No.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
Whether the existing conditions from which a variance is being sought were self-created. Jacobs?
Yes.
Raska?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Raska?
Yes.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Okay, we just need a motion on the 5-foot fence.
Motion to approve the variance to the 5-foot fence.
I'll second it.
Raska.
Any more discussion?
That was Ellis, that was you?
It was Ellis.
Thank you.
We have a motion seconded. Judy, call the roll, please.
All right, Jacobs?
I'm in favor. Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
Raska?
Yes, in favor.
Salmonson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that right? Oh, thank you very much for everything you gave us. We appreciate the fine discussion. Next on the agenda is the upcoming agenda. I don't have it in front of me, but I think that's what it is. Correct?
Agenda planning?
Agenda planning. Thank you.
So I'll revise the staff report based on the decision tonight with rationales, and then I believe they can appeal. Is it administrative appeal, or?
It goes to senior municipal court if that's what you
Okay.
want to do. And it's procedural, and it's a procedural appeal for Board of Zoning Appeals, so.
She's asking. That's the reason I said it.
And that is in the code. If you look online on the codified ordinances, find the zoning code, it'll list out what are the grounds for appeal for.
Okay.
I thought so. I thought I saw it there.
You don't need to fence everybody else. Good, then. You don't need to fence everybody.
But if, I believe it is only procedural. Like the appeal has to be that there was an incorrect
Noticing.
procedural.
Like a noticing error.
A noticing error, or roll was incorrectly called, or something like that.
More perception on functionality.
So I will, I'll base, I was texting, I'll update my staff report based on, I'll have to re-listen to this,
Yeah.
to get the rationale, and then I'll put it in, and I'll change my findings.
Are we adjourned?
Agenda planning, anything in the upcoming that you know of?
I don't think so, but I would keep close eye on emails. We have been really busy, and we have a lot going to Planning Commission next month in September, so I don't have anything now, but it could change.
Okay. Could we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Adjourned.
All right.